Why does it feel like I'm stuck in career limbo? Why am I waiting for someone else to notice my value? Why does job searching feel like throwing resumes into a black hole? Am I missing something, or is it time to change the game? If these questions are running through your mind, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Hire Me Please Career Podcast. I'm Gemma Lopez, career coach and recruiting expert, and this season is all about taking back control of your career. No more waiting for permission, no more playing small. I'm here to help you ditch the doubt, advocate for yourself, and land a role that excites you. From navigating career pivots to negotiating what you're really worth, we're uncovering the real, unfiltered strategies that you need to know. No gatekeeping here. So, if you're ready to go from feeling stuck to thriving in your career, let's do this. Hey there, and welcome back to Hire Me Please. This is Gemma checking in with you again on a Tuesday. So grab a cup of coffee, or if you're like me, your third cup of the day, because daylight savings time is rough. And I have not been able to recover the last couple of days since springing the clock forward on Sunday. But I'm excited because today I'll be diving into something that so many people struggle with: how to pivot careers without feeling like you're throwing away everything that you've built. I have had so many conversations with people who feel stuck. They want change, but they're terrified. And maybe you're one of them. Maybe you're thinking, I don't want to start over. I don't want to go back to school. I can't take a pay cut, but I do want something different. If that sounds familiar, you are in the right place. And I want to kick us off with a little story. So a few months ago, a client of mine, Yolanda, had spent over a decade in marketing. She was really good at it, but she felt unfulfilled. She really wanted to pivot into a UX research role, but thought that meant going back to school, taking an entry-level job, and starting over completely. But here's what we did instead. I did a deep dive of her experience. We repositioned her, reframed her skill set, and highlighted her problem-solving abilities. And just within a couple of weeks of repositioning her LinkedIn profile and her assets, she started interviewing, and recently she landed a UX research role without taking a pay cut. No degree required, no complete restart, just a strategic shift. I also worked with another client recently, Michael, and he had spent the last 15 years at the same company as a data analyst. He was working for a publishing company and was desperate to change industries because he had survived 3 layoffs but didn't know if he was going to survive the next one. He also didn't know what options he had. He'd been working from home, he'd been at the same company. He really just didn't have a pulse on the market. Through a couple of conversations with me, we really went deep and uncovered 2 different career paths. And he ended up choosing something that he'd never even heard of before. His whole thing was, I don't know what's out there. So I was able to help him determine that. Now he landed a new job. He's making more money than he made before. He's in a better industry, and he's in HR analytics, which is something that he would never have thought of. He didn't even know that existed. And he is loving his new role. And that's what today's episode is all about. A career pivot isn't about throwing everything away. It's about strategically leveraging what you already have. So let's define what a career pivot really is. A pivot means that you're shifting into a new role, a new industry, or a new function while still using the skills and experience that you've built. It's different from a complete restart where you leave everything behind and start over from scratch. And to be quite honest, I've worked with so many people that really didn't think they had transferable skills. But once we kind of looked at what they had been doing, surprise, surprise, they have transferable skills. So honestly, a complete restart, that could happen. but it's very unlikely that that is what you need. I think complete restart is more for someone that is a lawyer and wants to be a pharmacist, or that is a teacher but wants to be a nurse, where, you really have to have a very different skill set. You have to have qualifications, probably a degree. If you wanted to go from being a customer success manager and you wanted to be a therapist and you wanted to work in a school setting, then yeah, you probably would have to go back to school and get those qualifications. But that's not everyone. And if you're not wanting to do a whole career change like that, and you just want to know what options, what opportunities, what can you do with the skills that you've already built, this is what I'm talking about. So think of it like adjusting your GPS. If you realize the road that you're on isn't taking you where you want to go, you don't just throw away the car, you find a new route. And a great example of this is teachers that transition into corporate learning and development roles. They're still using their ability to teach, to coach, to create learning materials, but they're just applying it in a different environment. Or maybe you've been in sales for years and now you want to transition into marketing. You already understand customer psychology, market needs, and business strategy. That's your foundation. So it's not really about starting all over. It's taking a step back and asking yourself, okay, how can I repurpose what I already know? And it's more about how can I position myself to focus on where I want to go rather than where I've already been. Because your past experience is an asset, it's not a liability. So we can talk about how to use it to your advantage. I had another client, James, who spent 15 years in sales leadership, and he loved working with customers, but he was tired of quotas. He was tired of the pressure of closing deals. And he was just tired of the ups and downs and the inconsistency in his paycheck. He thought about moving into marketing because he had worked in MarTech for such a long time, but he didn't see how his background applied. And through our work together, I really helped him reframe his experience. His ability to understand customer needs, that was market research. And he was very in touch with the customers that he worked with. And since it was in the MarTech industry, he already knew the product and the people behind it. He had really great skills in explaining product value, and that transitioned into messaging and positioning. And his experience working with cross-functional teams, that was the stakeholder communication that he needed for the role that he was applying for. Within just several months, he landed a senior marketing role, didn't take a step back. He didn't lose any income. He actually got a higher base salary, different bonus structure, and he's just much happier. I think for all of us, we just want to try something new. And sometimes we don't know what new is, but let me tell you, your transferable skills are key. Leadership, problem solving, project management, communication, and even technical expertise can all be repurposed in new ways. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your secret weapon, networking. And no, I don't mean going to stuffy conferences and making awkward small talk. I mean real connections that help open doors. A lot of my clients are terrified of networking. They often tell me that they hate reaching out to people, but they know that they need to make connections to break into a new industry. So a lot of the times, I really challenge people to think about networking in a different way. Instead of thinking about it as this very awkward, weird situation where you're just like trying to meet people for your own gain, stop thinking about it like that. It doesn't have to be that way. I think a way to do it is really to just reframe. So keep it simple. Reach out to former colleagues first. People who already know you, who you like, who you share something with. That way, it's like catching up with an old friend. Also, try asking your friends for introductions instead of just cold messaging strangers and like spamming people. Reach out to people that you know. You know way more people than you think you do. Think about anyone that you've ever worked with, your coworkers, department heads that you supported, other teams that you've worked with, your managers, your old supervisors, your old managers. Those are all people that are in your network that you can reach out to that will remember you and recognize you. Then look at your college friends or any type of volunteer organizations or professional affiliations, just people that you've met organically through the years in a professional setting. Those can also be people that you can tap on for introductions. Also, don't forget about your partner's network. I've had information sessions and like low pressure coffee chats with my partner's old coworkers. So like think about an extension of that network. Also, all of your friends' network. So a lot of the times in my coaching, we'll talk about strong ties and weak ties. And you just know so many more people than you think you do. Think about people that your kids go to school with, people that go to the same church as you, people that volunteer at the same organizations, your neighbors. There's just so many people that you can reach out to that are in your network that may be able to introduce you to someone that has this opportunity for you. And as I always tell people, your next job could be sitting in your network with somebody that you already know. So once you start identifying these people, set up low pressured coffee chats, little check-ins where you can ask questions and learn about the industry, learn about the position, learn about what's happening, just really pick their brain instead of just asking for a job. Because I promise you, you can build these relationships with key players in your field. You just need to be intentional about who you reach out to. And a lot of the times, those connections will lead you to jobs that you never thought possible and that you would never find on job boards. This is the hidden job market that we're always talking about. And this is how you tap into that. So here's a challenge for you. If you just reach out to one person this week in your target field, just one, start a conversation, ask how they're doing, ask about their journey, and you never know where it might lead. So I challenge you to do that this week. Just reach out to one person. And then next week, reach out to another person and eventually ramp your way up to every single weekday, you're reaching out to someone else. And then you're nurturing the relationships of people that are reaching back out to you. Not everyone is going to respond to you. People are busy. People don't check their inboxes. People are doing their own thing. So don't be offended if no one's reaching back out to you or if it takes some time, because it happens, right? Like, how often do you read a text message, think that you responded, put your phone down, and then 3 days later you realize, oh crap, I never sent that text message. I know it's not just me. I know it's not. So give people some grace. Don't take things personally and just put yourself out there little by little. And it becomes easier and more natural as you keep practicing. So let's move on. Let's address a big misconception. Do you really need another degree to pivot? The answer is sometimes. Sometimes, sure. But often and most likely, no. A lot of clients that I work with think that they need to go to business school. They think they need an MBA to move into business strategy or C-suite. And honestly, I've looked at so many job postings. I've talked to so many people in the field. And after doing this exercise with my clients, they usually realize that they don't need to go back to school. Maybe you just need to take a couple of online courses or some trainings. Maybe you need to just volunteer for a more strategic project in your current company, or maybe you need to volunteer on a board or just try consulting or helping someone out or being an extra set of eyes. But there are so many different ways that you can get experience and make these transitions without spending thousands of dollars on tuition. Now, I have an MBA, and I think that education is great. I'm such a big proponent of education. That is something that you will have the rest of your life. It is such an investment in yourself. And that is one thing that no one can take away from you. You will always have your education. However, I worked for a university and my master's degree was heavily, heavily, heavily discounted. I mean, I think I just paid the taxes for it. So people often ask me, well, would you recommend getting a master's degree? And I really think that my personal opinion is it depends on the reason why you're wanting to get the degree. So before you commit to more education, ask yourself why you really want to get that education. Is it a requirement for the position that you want? Can you gain experience another way through projects or freelance work or certifications or volunteering? And what do people in your target field, what do they recommend? Those are the questions I would ask. Now, if you want to dive into education to better yourself, to be able to just take pride in those letters after your name, to expand your horizons and your knowledge, and it's more of a personal goal rather than a piece of paper that is going to guarantee you something, that's where I would suggest, like, if you really want to get a master's degree, for those reasons, get a master's degree. And when I say, like, for those reasons, I mean, if you were not going to get $1 back from, if you were not going to get any increases, would you still get that master's degree? That is how I would determine it, because it's hard. Like, getting your master's degree is hard. Graduate school is no joke. It's time consuming. It's exhausting. It's hard, and it's very expensive. But if you want the education to learn, to grow, to invest in yourself, then, I mean, you can only decide if it's worth it. That was the reason why I went to go and get my master's degree. I was never going to do it if it wasn't going to be free. Let's be honest. I am still paying for undergrad and probably will be until I die. But for me, I had always had a dream of continuing my education. And really, I love to learn. I'm a lifetime learner. I keep telling myself I'm not going back to school, but I will find myself wanting to keep learning and growing and upskill myself. However, there are other free and low-cost ways that you can upskill. There's LinkedIn Learning, there's Coursera, there's Udemy, there's Google certifications. There's so many ways to volunteer and give back. There's so many nonprofit organizations that could use your skills and use your help. There are so many professional affiliations that you can join, even business resource groups. I know that a lot of companies offer those opportunities for people as well. There's even consulting gigs, contract work. Like, there's just so many other ways that you can upskill and get the experience that you want without having to commit to a 2-year degree program that's going to cost you $50,000. So anyways, I digress. Let's break this down into a 6-step action plan, because your girl loves action plans. So the first thing to creating your career pivot plan would be doing a self-assessment. This doesn't have to take long. Really, just identify your skills. What are your strengths? What are your interests? What have you done so far? What comes easy to you that you're constantly being asked to help others in that area? And what do you really like? I think the biggest thing is, what skills do you have that you enjoy? Because we can be skilled at something but not enjoy the work, right? Like, I can dive into data. I can analyze data. I can clean that data. I can work on the back end of systems. Do I love it? No. Would I want to do that for 8 hours a day? Probably not, because I also love to talk to people. I am a talker. I like to have soundboards. I like to be strategic. I like to work on problems. I can't just sit behind the scenes all day. I will get bored. And that's just my personal experience and my personal desires. So just think about yourself, not necessarily from, can I do this job, or, are these skills relevant? No, don't think about it that way. Just really identify your skills. What are you skilled at? What do you love? What are you interested in? The next step from there would be to do some research, some targeted market research. Really look at different industries, different roles, some job titles. Just look online and see who's hiring, what are they hiring for. Look at people that you work with, look at places that you want to work, what kind of, people work there. It's very easy to look this up on LinkedIn, but it'll give you ideas of people's career paths, where they started, where they ended up, how did they get there. You can really learn a lot just by perusing LinkedIn and looking at people's profiles. Once you have an idea and you're like, okay, this is an industry I want to break into, and this is a role, or this is a job title, and this is some postings that you're seeing that there's a demand for it, then start building relationships in that area and start developing a networking strategy. Like I mentioned, reach out to one person a week, ramp that up to one person a day, start having these conversations, start nurturing these networks and relationships, and really think outside of the box of who do you know, because you know way more people than you think you do. Then the next step would be bridging the gap of those skills. So identify and acquire the essential skills that you need. If your company has been working on a proprietary software and that's all you've learned, but it's very similar to a Microsoft tool or a Google tool or any other type of software that's really popular, take some time and learn that software, right? One of the big ones I can think about is Tableau. A lot of companies now are moving to Tableau for their data visualization. If you've only worked in Excel, that's fine. It's great to be an Excel guru, but I bet you if you do some tutorials, if you look on, YouTube, or even just download Tableau, you would be able to kind of play around with it, get comfortable with the tool and see, okay, is this something that I can totally learn? Could I build some stuff in here? Could I use it? That's just a great way for you to kind of start learning. And I think that the biggest skills that you want to develop are software and tools, because those are always things in the interview process that they're going to want to know. Hey, we use Google tools here. Are you familiar with that? Or we actually use Tableau for all of our reporting and data visualization. Have you used that before? And honestly, some people are a lot faster at learning systems than others. I can't tell you how many people I've ever talked to that are like, I learn systems very easily and very quickly, but they're struggling to ramp up on the job because it's a lot more nuanced than they thought. If they would just do a little bit more work on their own time of getting familiar with the tool, maybe sitting through some demos, watching some videos, taking some courses or certifications, whatever you need to do to skill in that tool, the better. And as you know, tools are getting easier to use now. There's so many no-code tools. AI is here. There's so many different ways for you to learn how to use something or how to get the most out of it just by doing some research online. The next step from there is your resume and your LinkedIn, right? So reframing your experience to align with your new direction. A lot of people come to me and tell me that they keep getting the same type of positions that are coming to them. Like recruiters are reaching out to them for only lateral moves. And that is common because you have to look at your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Are they reflective of where you want to go, or are they just taking stock of everything that you've done? You want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile and your resume are really positioning you for your next position, for the direction that you want to go, and not just where you've already been. Because if it's just showing the work that you've done before, you're really going to get more or less of the same, right? Because recruiters are looking for specific keywords, they're looking for specific experience for their role. And if your role is very, very tied to your LinkedIn profile. So for example, if I'm recruiting and my whole LinkedIn profile presence is all on recruiting, but I actually want to get into an HR generalist role, they're not going to see that I want to be an HR generalist. They're going to see all of my recruiting experience. So just make sure that you position yourself for the position that you want and not the position that you have. And then finally, the last step is the job search strategy. Applying strategically, focusing on roles where your experience is an advantage, tapping on those networks. So that is all in all the 6-step action plan that you can take it, you can make it your own, But this is essentially the steps that you would take to basically creating your career pivot plan strategy. And that is the work that I do with my clients as well. So if you need help, reach out. I've helped so many people just make career pivots that feel aligned and strategic. And I want to leave you with this. You are not starting over. You are evolving. So if you take one thing away from this episode, let it be this. Your experience is valuable. And with the right strategy, you can pivot without losing progress. So I want to hear from you. Are you considering a career pivot? DM me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I'd love to chat. I'd love to answer any questions you have, or visit my website at mycoachgemma.com for different resources and coaching options. And let's keep the conversation going. So yeah, have a good one. I'll see you in the next episode. Keep going, keep growing, and keep believing in what is possible for you. And I will see you next time. Hey friend, if this episode gave you an aha moment, I want to hear about it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me your biggest takeaway. Or you can even send a message right here in the show notes. And if you're done spinning your wheels and ready to take action, real action, towards a career that excites you, let's talk about it. You can book a free career strategy call with me at mycoachgemma.com. And let's get you moving forward towards a career that you love.